Hello, my name is Brianne Pernick. I am your professor for Math 0900, and this is the lesson for Chapter 0, Lesson 1. Today we are working on simplifying fractions to the lowest terms using prime numbers, converting between improper fractions and mixed numbers, and changing a fraction to an equivalent fraction with a given denominator. So the first thing that we will do is quickly highlight that each lesson is going to contain terms that you are expected to know. We will talk about these terms throughout the lesson, so please make sure that if you're not familiar with these vocabulary words or if you're unsure of what they mean, it is a good idea that before you either watch this lesson that you define them, or if you are still unsure of what they mean by the end of the lesson, that you contact me so that you can get an idea of what it is that that vocabulary word means. So I'm going to start by asking, what is the difference between a whole number and a fraction? I want you to pause here for a second and just think about what the answer to that question actually is. A whole number is a number that has no fractional or decimal part to it. It is a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. A fraction is just simply a part of a whole. It's the part of the whole. It doesn't have that entire piece to it. If you want to think of a pizza and you're separating that pizza into individual slices, as you remove a slice, that pizza is no longer whole, and you now just have a fraction of that pizza left. And if you think about what you're holding in your hand, you have a fraction of that pizza in your hand. So the fraction is representing a part of a whole entity. What are the parts of a fraction? It's very important that you know the vocabulary words that represent a fraction. The fraction is split into a top part and a bottom part, but we don't call them top and bottom. They do have words that represent them. So the top part is called the numerator. And the bottom portion of that fraction is the denominator. So we have the numerator and the denominator. Now a fraction is nothing more than a division problem that's written with a fraction bar. Okay, so when you see that fraction bar, that is actually a division bar. So it's always going to be numerator divided by denominator, if you want to think of it that way. Now, fractions are easiest to use when they are simplified. What does that mean? What am I talking about when I say that a fraction is simplified? And why do you think that's true? Take a minute to think about the answer to that question. Now, what I'm talking about when I am referring to a fraction that's in simplest form means that there are no factors that can be divided out of that fraction. And it's easiest to use a fraction when it is in simplest form because the numbers are smaller. And any time that we have smaller numbers are easier to use. So when you look at a fraction, You can tell whether or not it is in simplest form by looking to see if there is any number that can be divided out of both the numerator and the denominator. For example, in letter A, when you look at 14/21, we can divide out a 7 from both the numerator and the denominator. If we divide out a 7 from both of those, we will end up with 14 divided by 7 makes 2, and 21 divided by 7 makes 3. So example A reduces to 2/3. It's very, very important that you make sure that you are dividing the same number out of both the numerator and the denominator. You absolutely can never divide out a different number, or else you're not properly reducing that fraction. You have to keep it the same in order to reduce it correctly. So I want you to take a second here and pause this recording and do example B and C on your own. Okay, by now you should have finished examples B and C, and for example B you should have seen that we can divide out a 9 from both the numerator and denominator. So when you do 9 divide by 9, you get 1 in your numerator, and 54 divide by 9 leaves us with a 6 in the denominator. So example B reduces to 1/6. And for letter C, this one, we should be able to see that we can divide out a 7. So when we divide by 7, 35 divide by 7 leaves us with a 5, and 7 divide by 7 gives us 1. That gives us 5/1, which will reduce further to just 5. We can leave it as 5/1, but there's no need to leave a fraction with a denominator of 1 written as a fraction, because that just represents a whole number. So we would simplify that further and just write it as the whole number 5. Letter D says that a basketball player made 9 out of 12 free throws. First, we would want to write this as a fraction and then simplify that fraction so that we could see the ratio of his free throws. So let's first write this as a fraction. If he is making 9 out of every 12 shots, we would write that as 9/12. Take a second and simplify that fraction. You should have seen that you can divide out a 3 from both the numerator and the denominator. So when you divide by 3, that will reduce to 3/4. The next concept that we are going to work on is converting between improper fractions and mixed numbers. So we need to make sure that we know what improper fractions and mixed numbers are in order to convert between them. An improper fraction is a fraction in which the numerator is larger than the denominator. If you look at 7/4, you will see that the 7 is larger than the 4. Therefore, that is improper. So we need to convert it to what is called a mixed number. You don't ever want to leave a fraction improper because it's not proper to do so. So when you're converting it to a mixed number, what you want to do is bump that 4 out front and set up a division problem, excuse me there, that's a 7, with the division bracket. So the 4 comes out front and the 7 goes underneath that division box there. And we're going to do 7 divided by 4. So 4 will go into 7 one time. We'll do our subtraction, and we'll have a remainder of 3. Now, this is all the math that we need to do right there. The mixed number is going to be 1 and 3/4. So the remainder becomes your numerator, and the denominator stayed the same. Let's try example B. Go ahead and pause the recording and then do example B on your own. Okay, so remember, you should have taken the 3, put it in front of your division box, and then the 15 will go on the inside. So we will want to see how many times 3 will go into 15, and it would be 5. When you do your subtraction, there's no remainder. So that means that this one would simplify to a mixed number of 5 with no fraction, so it's simply a whole number, not a mixed number. Okay, so now you will need to know how to convert from a mixed number to an improper fraction. This is important because when we do some future lessons on fractional review, you'll need to know how to do this for multiplying and dividing fractions. So the step here is to take the denominator and multiply it by the whole number. And then you take that result and add it to the numerator. So we're going to do 5 times 5 makes 25. So you do your 5 times 5 makes 25. I'm trying to write an equal sign and I didn't. And then you take your 25 and you add it to the 4 and you end up with 29. Your denominator always stays the same. So it's 29 fifths. 29 fifths. Take a moment, pause your recording, and then come back. Okay, remember your steps here, guys. We want to make sure that we're multiplying the denominator by the whole number and then adding the result to the numerator. So 2 times 7 makes 14. 14 plus 6 would give us 20. Our denominator always stays the same, so we would end up with 27ths. 27ths. And the very last example that I have for you today is a problem in which we are asked to find the missing number, where we're creating an equivalent fraction with a given denominator. So the simplest way to do this type of problem is to ask yourself, what did they multiply by to go from 6 to 24? Well, they multiplied by a 4. So since they multiplied by 4 in the denominator, you also have to multiply by 4 in the numerator. So 5 times 4 is 20. The missing number is 20. If you guys have any questions at all after watching this lesson that we went through, please let me know. I will be more than happy to log into Blackboard Collaborate and do a live lesson with you. There are supplemental videos that I have posted for this lesson created by Mrs. Delamo. Please watch the videos if you need to. Let me know if you need some extra help. I'm here to help you. Okay? Do your homework on this section for practice. You can do it as many times as you need to. It's set for an infinite number of attempts. Okay, good luck. Thanks.